Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. So today I am reviewing Ahsoka Episode 5. We just watched it tonight, so it's fresh in my mind. This will contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen it and you don't want spoilers, then click away, watch the episode before you watch my review. So without further ado, let's get right into this. So, after the cliffhanger last week where Ahsoka's in the world between worlds and Anakin's standing there were all kinds of theories floating around. Every Star Wars fan who has been excited for this, waiting for this, we all had our own theories and ideas of what was going to happen. There were rumors that she was going to go into these what-if scenarios, trying to heal from what she feels guilty for leaving the Jedi Order and abandoning Anakin, and never really healed from that, and blamed herself for Darth Vader. And so there was the thought that he was going to take her through these memories and show her that no matter what she would have done, he was destined to turn to the dark side. And so there was a possibility of like a scenario where he shows her on Mustafar where what would have happened if she had gone with Obi-Wan, that she would not have been able to change his mind. There were ideas and of flashbacks maybe to the Clone Wars and them talking about his fall and redemption, and her how it wasn't her fault, he made his own choices, and kind of bringing her to this place of healing. There were ideas and thoughts that it could have been the son, the father. The son represents the dark side, the daughter is the light side, the father is the balance. It was in the Mortis arc in Clone Wars, so there were thoughts that he was making her, because he can change his appearance and make people hallucinate and stuff, so there was a thought that he was actually Anakin. There's other ideas that maybe this was just going on in her head as she was like dying and drowning in the water, that sort of thing. So we didn't know what to expect, but I had very, very high hopes. The last week was so hyped. It was like the first episode that was like the best Disney live action that we've gotten. And so we come into the episode, and basically the episode was divided between Hera and the crew on the ground looking for Ahsoka and Sabine, and then Ahsoka in the world between worlds with Anakin. That's pretty much how it was divided. On Hera's side of things, to my surprise, Jason, her son, with Kanan. Kanan's my favorite Jedi, my favorite character overall in Rebels. But Hera's son with Kanan, Jason was sensing something, and so he asked Hera and the other fighters to go looking, and so they were searching all over the water, and I wasn't expecting him to be so involved, but I was thoroughly happy. I wanted him to be, I just didn't think they would do it, and so I was really excited to see him. He's sensing in the Force, he sensed Ahsoka, and he sensed Ahsoka fighting with Anakin. He sensed the lightsabers, he could hear them, which showed me, and I think they did that to show that what happened in Ahsoka's head, not really in her head, but what was going on in the world between worlds was actually real, that it wasn't just in her head. With that being said, she did start dueling Anakin. He told her, I have one final lesson to teach you. And so he was started dueling her, and then he cuts the pathway and she falls, and so we knew she was going to fall into a memory. My sister was like chanting that as she fell, so she falls into a memory, and we finally get live action Clone Wars. So when I watched the Clone Wars, I loved the show. When I first saw it and when I continued watching it, my ultimate dream was to see a live action Clone Wars. I wanted to see Hayden Christensen as Anakin, showing us this time period. Anakin in episode 2, is very angry. He's very, he feels like Obi-Wan's holding him back and everything else. He's still very much a teenager. And then in episode 3, it's about his fall to the dark side, and he's amazing and my favorite character overall. But the one thing that I love about the Clone Wars, and a lot of people agree on this, is that it expands upon Anakin's character, and it shows that the general, the Jedi Knight, the general, the brave man, the brave soldier, it shows a different side of Anakin, and that's why a lot of people who who didn't like Hayden Christensen's acting in the prequels actually became to learn to fall in love with Anakin's character, was because of the Clone Wars. And some people started seeing the voice of him, Matt Lanner or something, I can't pronounce his last name, but the voice of Anakin, they saw him as the real Anakin instead of Hayden. And fans like me who love Hayden Christensen, to me, he is Anakin Skywalker, and he he is Anakin Skywalker. That's nothing against the voice actor who plays Anakin. He did a good job. But I knew Hayden is Anakin, and he does Anakin perfectly. And I always felt like he just was only able to portray Anakin at two very distinct points in his life. One, when he's a teenager, when he's very angsty and teenager, he's very angry and arrogant and stuff like that. And then, of course, portraying him as the fall of the dark side. So I personally felt like Hayden never had a chance to play Anakin at his height. At the height of his power, when he's a Jedi Knight, not just at his power, but like Anakin as the best version of his character, because he goes from an angsty, arrogant teenager to a brave Jedi Knight fighting in the Clone Wars, a very, very brave general, very, very wise strategist, and maybe a little reckless and disobedient, but still. And I felt like those are the fun times of Anakin's life, and I was always really sad that Hayden never had a chance to play those moments. The closest we ever got was the opening sequence of episode 3, where him and Obi-Wan have their familiar brother banter that expanded upon in the Clone Wars TV show, as they're trying to rescue Palpatine.
This is where the fun begins.
Hold your fire! You're not helping here!
I agree. Bad idea.
Can't see a thing.
My cockpit's fogging.
They're all over me.
Anakin!
Move to the right.
Hold on, Anakin. You're gonna get us both killed.
And that was the closest we ever had to Clone Wars Anakin. And so my dream finally, so it was always my dream to see Hayden getting to play that version of Anakin, the fun version of Anakin that's the Jedi Knight, the soldier, because the movies had a certain amount of time to tell this story, and it had to be the parts of Anakin's life that they were, which just meant that the extra Clone Wars stuff, because it was animated, Hayden never got to play that. He never got to show that side of Anakin, and now he finally had his chance, and he has his chance to shine, and boy, shine he does. In the flashback, they put him in his Clone Wars gear, and I know this may seem redundant and very obvious, but it literally brought the Clone Wars to life. That's literally what it was intended to do. And it was just like, some people see it as two very different Anakins because they are portrayed by two different actors. In the case of Matt, it's a voice actor. But a lot of people see it as very different, and usually those people are the ones that just don't understand Anakin's character in episode 2 or episode 3, and that's, they disagree about the acting and everything, which it is what it is meant to be, and the acting is phenomenal and perfect. But the point is that they see that as like two different characters or two different versions of Anakin, and it is Anakin. It is one character, and I feel like this bridges the gap, and this literally it feels like Anakin. It's just another part of his journey. It's another aspect of him that we've never gotten to see before, and seeing Hayden portray that, I cannot express how that made me feel. Like it was a dream come true. Sort of like how people, if you grew up with the original Star Wars, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, a lot of Star Wars fans probably always wanted to see in Episode 7 where Luke restarts the Jedi Order, Luke at his height of his power, at his peak, when he's, middle-aged Luke, brave Jedi Knight, going on adventures, and that's where the EU, a lot of the books that expanded upon that was the only way that a lot of fans got to experience that. And so the excitement level for Episode 7 and what they were hoping to get out of it from Luke Skywalker, Leia, and Han Solo, their excitement level and hype for that before the sequels let them down, I can imagine that that's exactly how I feel. Like for me, I always did want an Episode 7, but I grew up with the prequels in the same way that a lot of older people grew up with the originals. And so for me, my dream was the Clone Wars live action. Like, I loved the animated series, but there was still a part of me that just wanted to see it portrayed as it was meant to be, with Ewan McGregor, with Hayden Christensen, and with a live action version of Ahsoka. And even though there was no Obi-Wan in this, we still got Hayden Christensen, we got young Ahsoka, it was my dream come true. And unlike the sequels and how they let down the fandom, this was no letdown. This was absolutely perfect. It was cinematic. It was beautiful. The younger version of Ahsoka nailed animated Ahsoka. Her fighting, I could not believe how fluid they make her. That was the one concern when you think about the idea of Ahsoka being brought to life back when we first heard this was going to be a show. The biggest concern was that because she is animated, Ahsoka, her fighting style is so fluid, because in animation they can actually do that. Real people, especially with a heavy prosthetic on, cannot move like that. And so you risk the character moving and fighting very stilted. Now, Rosario Dawson does a really good job, and she does a good job copying Ahsoka's mannerisms and the way she's supposed to be now. And in her fighting style, you can get by with it because she's an older character and she's mastered her style. And so they do that whole slow samurai master kind of style fighting with her. But this was young Ahsoka during the Clone Wars, with, which came from the animated show where she is fluid. And the young actress did a fantastic job. The way she talked, her expressions was very expressive, very animated, ironically enough. And it was literally the Clone Wars brought to life. I know that's what it was supposed to be, but you don't ever know how well they do it. Like when they did in the Kenobi show, they were supposed to bring the Inquisitor brought to life, and they didn't. It was just not the same thing. His mannerisms, his voice, the way he acts, his personality, the way he looked was so far off. And so you just never know how well they're going to do something when it comes from animated to live action, and this was perfect. So with that in mind, I did feel like it was a little short. I did feel like I wanted more. Like, obviously we all want more, but I felt like the theme was Anakin giving her a lesson to give her the will to live, which was just like, she's in the water, so obviously she's in this state between life and death, and so it became about her deciding whether she wants to live or not, which Ahsoka was never really suicidal. So for me, it was just like, I feel like the conversation should have focused more on his fall, his redemption, Anakin owning responsibility, telling her that his son redeemed him, and freeing her from her guilt and from her sadness and grief about it. And the conversation wasn't about that, and I felt like the dialogue could have been. And then I also, this is just me as a, like, that to me made sense logically, and as a writer, as a fan, everything. The fan in me also would have liked an explanation for what he was doing there, like what's going on with Anakin. It did seem like it was implying, because at one part he uses the light side and he's dueling her, and they go through the happy memory, some of the memories, and they talk about like her mourning the death that she saw in the war, mourning the clones, which again, that was a long time ago, and she has a lot of other things that is bothering her and on her mind now that they should have talked about, and they didn't. So that was a little odd to me, which seems to imply that there's going to be more, that he's gonna talk to her again sometime. But later he does kind of go to the dark side and become Vader, like not actual Vader in the suit, but like Vader before he was burned on Mustafar, and so they duel that way, and his lightsaber's red. And then when they finish dueling, he comes out of it and he calms down, and so the duality there implies that he is kind of acting as the chosen one in perfect balance. And so I hope that he's kind of taken the father's place as the balance of the Force, because in the Mortis arc, the father does ask him to take his place. The father's like, I'm dying, I'm weak, you're the chosen one, you can take my place, you can keep both of my children under control. Without that, the universe will go into chaos, all that stuff. Anakin obviously didn't, because, he had a life to live. But the idea then has been presented that Anakin, as the chosen one, could fulfill that role. And once he's redeemed, once he becomes a Force ghost, perhaps this is where Force ghosts go when they die, and perhaps now this is where he lives, and he is the chosen one, keeping balance to everything. And that's why he was able to use both sides perfectly. He's like the perfect gray Jedi. And so I hope that it's not done. I hope that he has more to teach Ahsoka. I think that would be good for character development, giving her, like, while she's teaching Sabine and going on this journey and going through all these things, Anakin is also teaching her, and she's also going on this journey and learning things while she's teaching things. And I think it would just be really cool. Overall, the episode was really good. Jason helped find Ahsoka, and then they all get, and she summons goes to the Purgil, connects with them like Ezra did. So I loved the poetry and the symmetry there, that she connected with them, and the ship flies into the Purgil's mouth, and then they go into hyperspace to go to the other galaxy, hopefully to where Ezra and Sabine are. So the poetry between, and the parallel to what Ezra did, at the end of Rebels, was really nice. Hera's not going with them, so I was a little sad about that. I was hoping she would fly her ship in there and they could just all go together. But it's Ahsoka and Huyang, the droid. And so we still don't know about the other galaxy. I'm hoping that'll be probably expanded upon next time. But again, I'm hoping that the lessons with Anakin is not done, that we get to see him perhaps as a Forced ghost, perhaps in the World Between Worlds again. It seemed like it was an odd thing to focus on when it comes to her living or dying, because she wasn't really suicidal. She wasn't really on, physically she might have been on the brink of death given that she was in the water and she was drowning, but there was no choice. She herself already wanted to live. So it was odd, and then it seemed like a very short lesson to teach her, because he's something about how I'm going to finish her training, so it seems like there's more training he needs to teach her. And then it's well, her mourning clones a long time ago is not what she needs to get over. And so I'm hoping that there's more, and that Dave Filoni is just kind of giving us these little pieces, and he didn't want to drop everything at once. So I'm hoping we'll get to see more in future episodes. Overall, this episode I would give it 9 out of 10, and I'm leaning more toward 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10. The only reason why I would say 9 out of 10 is just because last episode had so many lightsaber duels and was very suspenseful and action-packed. This one was action-packed in a way, but it was more focused on a different aspect, which is fine. They were looking for Ahsoka, and then she was dueling Anakin, and Clone Wars flashbacks, it was fantastic. I really don't have anything to complain about other than it was just really short, and the focus should have been a little bit more on conversations between her and getting over everything that's happened to her recently and stuff like that. Even talking about Sabine, and there was just no mention of Sabine and the trouble that she's had with her and stuff like that. He could have given her some really good advice on that. I'm hoping that they'll include that more. That leaves it open for more of that in the future. Overall, loved the episode. It was great. I really have a lot of faith in Dave Filoni, and this is proving that he needs to run Star Wars, and that Star Wars will be saved if it is in his hands. He knows what to do, and he's doing everything right, and he knows the fans, and he knows the fandom, and he knows how to do this really well without breaking canon, and giving us what is needed in the story, and how to handle legacy characters, especially if Disney's not going to get away from legacy characters and do something new. Then at least let Dave Filoni handle it. This live action Clone Wars, I cannot express to you guys how much it meant to me. It was a dream come true. It was so beautiful. It was everything I've ever hoped for, and Hayden Christensen nailed it. The young actress for Ahsoka, I don't know her name, she nailed it. We got a little glimpse of Rex in a scene. Rosario Dawson nailed it when she was interacting with Hayden. It was so nice to see him calling her Snips. It was Anakin, and it was Clone Wars Anakin, and Hayden finally got to shine and show that, and just so much praise for their acting for Hayden Christensen. 2 thumbs up. It was fantastic. If you liked this video, if you liked the episode, please give this a like and subscribe for more writing and reading videos every Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And in the meantime, if you liked this review of episode 5 of Ahsoka, then check out this episode where I reviewed episodes 1 through 4 of Ahsoka. You don't want to miss it. Very positive things to say. I'm excited to keep reviewing the show, so check that out. You don't want to miss it.